This is section 5.1. It's on classifying triangles. In geometry, a triangle is a figure formed when three non-collinear points are connected with segments. Each pair of segments forms an angle of the triangle. The vertex of each angle is a vertex of the triangle. Triangles are named by the letters at their vertices. Triangle DEF, that's this one here, is written like this. We're going to use three letters. You can put them in any order you want. We just chose DEF. And you put a little symbol in front, and that symbol is a triangle. So when you see three letters, that means a plane. When you see three letters with an angle in front, that's talking about the angle. But if you see three letters with a triangle, that's referring to the triangle that has those 3 points as vertices. So notice how it points out what a vertex is. It's just a point. So our vertices, there's three of them, would be point E, point D, and point F. And we know that already because of the way it was named. The angles are those same vertices but written as angles because vertices are points. Angles are where those two sides come together. So we could say angle E, angle D, and angle F. The sides are segments, and those segments connect two vertices. So your sides would be segment EF, segment FD, and segment DE. There's going to be some examples like this in your assignment. Also, in your assignment, you're going to have to classify triangles by their angles. An acute triangle has three acute angles in it. Also, before we move any further, it's probably a good idea to talk about how many degrees are in a triangle. We don't talk about it that in this section necessarily, but notice 63, 58, and 59 add up to 180. Every triangle has 180 degrees in it. So what's going to happen is we're going to be creating our own triangles in this section a lot. So it's important to know that info. That's why we're going to share it with you now. Acute triangles, all three angles are acute. Obtuse triangles, there's only one obtuse angle. So here's that one obtuse angle. Think about what would happen if there were two obtuse angles. You would have more than 180 degrees already. So again, that's useful information to help you understand why there's only one obtuse angle in an obtuse triangle. So the other two must be acute. And if you wanted to, you could add these three up. It's going to equal 180 as well. You can also classify a triangle as a right triangle. It's a right triangle if it has one right angle. It can't have two right angles because, again, that's already 180 degrees. So the other two angles must be acute. So here's how you classify triangles by looking at their angles. Sometimes they're only going to give you two angle measures. When that happens, you can always find the third one because, again, we know there's 180 degrees in a triangle. At the same time, you can also classify a triangle by its sides. A triangle is scalene if there are zero congruent sides. So here's a good example. Notice how all three of these side lengths are different. That means it's scalene. Now again, we get to this much later, but we're going to give you this little hint now. If there are zero congruent sides in a triangle, there are zero congruent angles as well. Isosceles triangles have at least two congruent sides. So notice how this side and this side are congruent. What that's going to do is that's going to create two congruent angles as well, and those would be right here. Isosceles triangles, at least two congruent sides, you're going to have two congruent angles at the same time. An equilateral triangle has three congruent sides. So notice how all three of these sides have a length of 10. That means it's equilateral. It's also going to have three congruent angles in the triangle. So equilateral triangles, three congruent sides. Now you could also classify this as isosceles, because notice how isosceles has at least two congruent sides. Well, this has at least two congruent sides. So this behaves as an isosceles triangle also. That's important information that we're going to get to later.